Whiskey Jason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American over here in Germany, often tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. Today I have a doozy for you. Willett 25-year-old rye whiskey. Wow. Now this bottle was gifted to me by one of my super fans. Barry, thank you very much. He was at the whiskey fair in Limburg, came to me, pulled this out of his backpack and said, Jason, if I gave this to you, would you do a video? And I was like, wow, are you serious? He said, yeah. Said, oh, yes, I am. He said, here you go. Look, the gold wax of the Willett Family Estate single barrel rye bottlings. 47%. This was distilled on the 10th of May, 1983. This was bottled 2009. It was stored in warehouse G. It was Rick N12, and it was barrel number 1372. So if you go to, interesting enough, look at this. There's a little bit of a gap down there, bottled 4. Now, if you go to the whiskey base, this is Whiskybase number 16027. So only 5 digits. You'll see that this was made for the Liquor World Bardstown. It was bottled for. They're still there. I thought that was so cool. I just Googled them. They're actually on 93 North Salem Drive in Bardstown, Kentucky, up until this day in the zip code 40004. So they're still there. And for some reason, my bottle doesn't have that, but it's all handwritten there. 144 bottles. Now, one of these bottles did sell recently, and this bottle was sold for, now hold onto your chairs or sit down, this bottle was sold for 3,900 pounds. So, almost 4,500 euros for this bottle. Each and every single tiny CL is worth over 50 euros. So, I'm going to take my glass, I'm going to pour 1 CL in here, and this is going to be 50 euros. Now, that's it. 50 euros worth of juice. That's crazy. I would never, ever, ever pay that much money for any bottle. I have a few people in Germany that have similar bottles, and they're like, Jason, I'm going to open this up one day. I said, are you crazy? Sell it. Go to an auction site, put it there, get 4,500, 5,000, even 3,000 euros. Buy yourself 1 or 2 other bottles you've always wanted and put the other money away for your children. Or do something or donate it. But it's not worth the money. All right, so any bottle over $300, in my opinion, at the moment, $300 is my limit, the return on investment diminishes. There is no bottle of whiskey out there, in my opinion, that's worth more than $300 for a bottle. All right, so anything over $100 has, oh, there have been up to 200 and then 300 and then, Now I might revise that one day and go, okay, maybe up to 500, but we're talking almost $4,000, 4,000 euros. No. No. All right, so I am so sorry. Now, Barry did not pay 3,900 pounds for this. He bought it probably 2009, around there when it was actually bottled, maybe 2010. He may have paid $200 for this, 200 euros. So the average price on Whiskybase is given with 156 euros. I would buy 10 of them for that price. All right. So if you don't know anything about the history of Willett distilleries, I'm just going to give you a little bit of facts and figures before I move over to my comparison whiskey. So Kentucky Bourbon Distillers are the owners of the Willett Distillery in Bardstown. I visited them 4 or 5 years ago. Beautiful place, great place to go. And the Willett Distillery was built 1936, just a few years then after repeal of the national prohibition by Lambert Willett, L-T. He was a former distiller for Max Sellingers and Co. And the distillery was actually a success. They had their old Bardstown's brand. They had their Johnny Drum brands. Um, in the 70s, though, we had that bourbon slump, is what it's called sometimes. And some people actually gave them the advice, unfortunately, hey, since we're going into then the energy crisis, why don't you start producing ethanol or gasohol? So, and that was a very, very bad idea. So, in the 80s, in the early 80s, the distillery closed down completely. This was made 1983. This is not Willet juice. It does not say Willet juice. It says here distilled and bottled in Kentucky, the Willett Distillery, not Willet juice. This is sourced. Probably Heaven Hill, probably barely legal rye, 51%. All right, so what happens is in 1984, Lambert Willett's granddaughter, her name is here Martha Willett, and her husband from Norway. So the Even Kulsvin purchased the distillery and established Kentucky Bourbon Distillers in 1984. And they gradually bottled the remaining barrels of the 70s distilled stock, and that diminished, and so they had replenished the stock and bought from a lot of other places, mainly from Heaven Hill. They developed other interesting brands that we know of: Noah's Mill, Rowan's Creek. They had actually, they did contract bottling for very old St. Nick, which is now by Redemption Brands, I think it's called. They had Black Maple Hill Brands, which is now in California. And in January 21st of 2012, they actually reopened the Willett Distillery. When I was there in 2018, they had just released their 3-year-old rye. And they have now, and this is my comparison whiskey, which is the 4-year-old rye. All right, I like this. This is good stuff. Now, most of the brands that we do have today are Noah's Mills, are Rowan's Creek, are Johnny Drums, and so on, are predominantly, if not entirely, made now at Bardstown. Up until about 2 to 4 years ago, not. You can always read the labels. So here the label says on the back, distilled, aged, and bottled by the Willett Distillery in Bardstown, Kentucky. What I don't understand is in the old label here we had Straight Kentucky Rye Whisky. Now we only have Straight Rye Whisky. But in the back it says it was aged, it was distilled, it was matured. What else do we have here? So distilled, aged, and bottled by the in Bardstown, Kentucky. So now, if you take a look at the colors here, you'll see a mahogany red versus a lightly tanned brown moment here. This is 4-year-old rye. This is 25-year-old rye. This was a standard oak barrel. 144 bottles they got out of it at 47%. Now, I think that's amazing because that means there's about a 2% angel share per year. So half of it was gone, and you still have about half of it left. That's a lot after 25 years, especially if you consider that normal angel shares is 4 to 8% in Kentucky. So this was stowed away a little bit on the lower floors, and it didn't get as much heat exchange as up in the top of the rickhouse, which is just fine. I do not feel that I am worthy to drink this whiskey. There are other people out there in the world that would be able to enjoy and be able to discern this whiskey much better than me. Every single time I look at this bottle, every single time I look at the glass, I just go, I'm almost disgusted. It's what I'm using on purpose. Disgusted by the prices people are willing to pay. When I first smelled this, I had a little bit of the feeling that I had, for example, the Booker's Rye. That was the 13-year-old 1 month and 12-day product. I don't know if you remember that. I had it once. I had a sample, so I had it twice or 3 times, but I did a video about it. That back then was 68.1%. And today the bottles are going for an average about 3,000 to 4,000 euros. I think that is appalling. What else could you do with that money instead of drinking things? Anything over $300 for a bottle of whiskey is just not worth it, in my opinion. There might be individual bottles, maybe of a Bushmills Causeway, that I might be willing to at least do a sample of a bottle worth $500, but then anything above that is just diminishing returns on investment. It's just not worth it. All right, it's out of my price category. Now, I've seen people order $1,000 worth of caviar at a restaurant and leave half of it. For some people, money is not an issue. For me, I can't do that. All right, so I'm very, very happy to have the chance here. But the entire time, is that fight in me between excitement and disgust of the price, of the I feel so privileged and I'm not worthy. It's this teeter-totter, seesaw, back and forth in me about this whiskey. All right, so this, I'll go out and buy a new bottle again. About 80 euros. Great stuff. Like it. 4 years of age. 54.7%. Delicious. This I will never get again. So thanks, Barry. So on the nose, furniture polish, pecan pie, caramelized cherries, caramelized strawberries, caramelized raspberries. You take any of the fruits and you just caramelize them. That's what I'm getting here, as if you just wrap them in caramel. A little bit of oak, a little bit of tobacco leaves, sweet. Over here, a different type of sweet, I have more of a spearmint moment going on here. All right, 47%. Cheers. Mm-hmm. Okay, the 47%, there's alcohol still there burning a little bit, but it's not, it feels thin, which I was not expecting. There's a sweetness, there's a cotton candy type of sweetness, there's that, still the caramel with the strawberries, with the cherries, with the raspberries all in there. There's a little bit of the tobacco, there's a lot of vanilla, there's a little bit of powdered sugar going on. There's a long finish, but it's not an overly unexpectedly long finish. After about a minute, it's gone. This is a good whiskey. This is very good. This is an A- good. It's not an A, it's not an A+, it's an A-. Value for money, according to Whiskybase, it used to go for 156 euros. That would have been a A+ for value for money for this bottle. The 3,900 pounds is a F. It just blows my mind that someone would be willing to pay that much money for such a bottle. No. Good. It's almost gone. There's no more finish left. It's a good sipping whiskey. It's not overly complex. There's like 3 or 4 notes in the accord, and that's it. There is not very many transition. It comes in, it stays, it goes, it stays. It's there, but it's not go. Yeah, look at me now. I'm different. I get that a little bit here. I put water in it in my German video. The astringency, the woodiness came through, and I got a tiny, tiny little bit more of a dill eucalyptus moment. Did not do it well. So no water whatsoever is required. Take one more sip, go over here, and then I feel privileged, and I feel a little bit appalled about the value of this sip that I'm taking. very nice, but not something I would reach for. I would reach for a Booker's. I would reach for Elijah Craig barrel proof. I would reach for the Doc Swinson, the Rye Solera. I'd reach for an Eagle, not an Eagle Rare. Okay, good. The Redbreast 21 and the 12 cask strength I would reach for. Those are products that are just fantastic. Those are A whiskeys in my book often. And this is only the A minus. If I did it blind, it might actually be a B plus. All right, going over here to our 4-year-old. Remember, hardly any transitions, hardly anything that is exceedingly outstanding here. It's good. As I said, a little bit spearmint, a little bit more of an herbal moment going on here. I like an herbal tea. I like the rye. I have rye. I like the cask strength, the 54.7%. I like the sweetness without it being overly sweet. This is a very good whiskey. I would, independent of price, probably reach for this more than I would for this. But that's my flavor profile. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something with a little bit more backbone, a little bit more of a spicy kick. And this was easy. This was smooth. This was sweet. This was silky. But it's not really my preferred profile. Yeah. Excitedly, the word disappointed, I don't know if I can use that, but I'm still privileged and honored to have tried this, and yet it wasn't life-changing. So, 2 questions. First question is, what is your oldest American whiskey you've ever had in glass? This might be mine, actually. I think so. The Pappy 23. This is older, the 25. I might have had something that was a little bit older, but my oldest single malt my oldest Scotch, which was a single grain, was 50 years of age. I've had 53 since then. I've had some others around the 45 to 50s, 55s. But this is one of my, if not the oldest, this is, I think, the oldest rye I've ever had and ever seen. So what is your oldest product there? And if you can't write down your oldest product, you can write down your most expensive product you've tried. I'm sure the word Pappy is going to show up every once in a while, especially since we sometimes do price the whiskeys according to secondary market factors. So thank you very much. Like, subscribe, tell others about this crazy guy over here in Germany tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. 25-year-old gold wax label family estate single barrel rye. See you soon. Bye-bye.